the Tim Walz announcement as Kamala Harris's running mate in the US presidential election. Obviously, she had to make that decision. But just picking up on some of the ideas that we were talking about last time, I find it curious that I think that maybe he suited her sensibility out of all of them in terms of whoever she was looking at. There was obviously a connection with social media, and his effectively he popularized the term weird when describing the Republicans, which took off online, and I'm sure that was noticed. And he's got the whole I'm the cool dad for Gen Z vibe. And he did actually he did have a speech when he was announced, and he sounded pretty good as far he was able to put his sentences together and sound energetic and all of that. But it kind of I think we were talking about this before we got on. I think what it did is it highlighted a sense of energy and vitality that now makes Trump look really old. A bit like how Biden was looking a bit old before they pulled the pin on him. Although I don't think they're going to pull the pin on Trump somehow, because they've gone too far down the line now as far as selecting him. I don't think it's actually in the DNA of the Republicans to do something like that, because once they get all together and they get on board all together, that's it. They're going all the way through. Obviously, Trump had this bizarre press conference a day or two ago, and he had to bring up crowd sizes again, because apparently he's not happy that the Harris Walz ticket is generating huge crowds whenever they're going around the country doing their rallies and whatnot. And I think it just seems more and more that the Trump shtick is getting old, and what by that I mean politically old. So whereas as obscene as far as I'm concerned is that it did work in 2016, but it hasn't really worked since, and if anything it's gotten worse. And I just find it's interesting that the way to contrast that is to go with almost a social media led campaign from the other side. And then I think about all of that, and I go back to what I said the last time: who the hell knows what's going to happen? Because I truly think that this is still Wild West territory. That and again, another dig at the media from me, they're still thinking in conventional terms. The whole thing about Shapiro not being selected as the VP candidate instead of Walz was because conventional thinking says you pick him to give you Pennsylvania, which is the one that she needs the most in order to guarantee the electoral college, but she didn't pick him. And they're like, but he was the one that she should have picked. She made a mistake. Did she, though? This is what I'm saying. There's too much conventional punditry in the media that I find that they a bit behind the eight ball with some of that stuff, but they're still trying to they're still trying to present a way that that they think that they know what they're talking about with this stuff, whereas I think collectively I don't think anyone knows what's going on.
I tend to agree with you, Ben. I think one thing that with 4 or 5 weeks now since Biden stepped down.
Oh yeah, that did happen, didn't it? I almost forgot that happened, given the cycle that's going on at the moment.
It's so long ago. But the interesting thing is I think it's given the Democrats a chance to reset. And in that period, they've thought about these things. So if you notice, Kamala Harris really hasn't been allowed to speak too publicly or push her profile too high, apart from the fact she is the Democratic nomination. And I think that's quite measured. She hasn't got a great record, certainly from past campaigns. So this is one way of creating a vacuum, and I think this is quite deliberate for Trump to shout into. And it's having the effect, as you say, of making Trump look like a shouty old man. In fact, he now starts to look, and I would say actually visibly and visually, in terms of the way media is distributed in this day and age, he's starting to look like a shouty old man that's not much more sound than Biden was. And I thought Biden was okay, but Trump's now starting to look a little bit detached. So I think there's a lot of that in there. And then to choose Walz, who you know, is literally somebody who looks very clean, doesn't have much of a record, would be very hard for Trump to attack, apart from calling him the usual list of names or crimes. But it'll be very hard to stick anything to him because he doesn't seem to have a record of anything other than a sort of, you know, a neutral, sort of nice kind of ordinary guy. So I think that, and plus he's actually has got a significant social following. So I think that sort of thing, the Democrats would have really looked into this. They'd be thinking about this deeply, and it's quite potentially maybe that's what actually wins you 3 states instead of just 1. So I don't think, I'd be very disappointed as someone who's just interested in political machinations if the Democrats really haven't thought this through and finally, after 8 years, lined everything up to at least give themselves a winning chance. That would be my assessment. And I think potentially they have. And I'm agreeing with you now from a few weeks ago. This election, I think, could literally go any way, and it's now Trump's to lose.
And cynicism aside, you know, the Democrats have got significant motivation to want to beat Trump properly this time, I think, because because it's not just him; it's everything that he represents. Now, one thing I wanted to finish up on, though, is that even if they have a thumping victory in November, they're still going to have to deal with Trumpism in some way, shape or form. I don't think it's just going to disappear overnight. And how that gets handled will be interesting in the subsequent years, I guess.
I would agree with you, but, you know, I am a firm believer, though, that, you know, Trump, sure, is a figurehead, but he represents the isolation and the disconnection for part of America. So maybe he doesn't necessarily, I think most people would agree that the way he voices that may well be inappropriate, but that is actually what the Democrats need to use the next 4 years to rebuild if they're successful. Because if they don't, this won't go away. And this will be something that will continue to divide, and not just in their country, but globally as well. So I think it's very important that somewhere along the way, whoever wins, there's some sort of reconnection of America and they're united once again.
It's certainly something they've done before in their history. So let's see if they can do it again.